want the same thing. We want the justice system to work for us. And I say this and shut up and somebody else can talk. To help people understand something, when the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States was written, it was not intentionally written for African Americans.
Right. That's true.
So when we sit here and say we didn't have freedom of speech and expression, the First Amendment didn't mean nothing to us. The Second Amendment wasn't for us. None of that was for us. Martin Luther King was threatened day in and day out. Mm-hmm. They wanted to kill him all the time. And he wanted to try to get a gun, and they wouldn't allow it to him. They told him it wasn't enough for him to own a gun. A black man couldn't have a gun unless he was in the presence of a white man. We was already considered a threat because of your skin. Now with a gun, that makes you even worse. So all of that is built up throughout years. And then when you see people, it's like when we talk to you, ignores, then next time hit the streets. And they're going to hit the streets. We can protest peacefully. You saw all them peaceful protests posted on Facebook where they show this Martin Luther King walking and say, this is peaceful, this is how you protest. But then they don't show you the rest at the same time. Here come the water hose, here come the dogs, here come the sticks. They're getting beat down. You know how many times that man was in jail? When slavery ended, prison is the next slavery.
Yeah, 13th
Do your homework in every state in the United States. There's more African Americans in prison than anything. Take us out the house, take us out the home, watch the family fall. Take the man out the house, leave it all on the woman, watch her fall, slip some drugs into the community. And if I'm on one side of the track and I'm told you can't come on this side of the track, like the LA, that's my side, this is your side. So I get to sit here and watch Beverly Hills grow and watch everybody prosper and everything. And I got to stay on this side of the tracks, year after year after year after year. You know, not me, my family members that are older than me, and then so forth and so forth. And then you watch that, and you watch everybody else get new cars and new houses and everything growing, and they're getting where they need to get, and you're getting nothing. And then they wonder how you end up being violent and whatnot, and start like, I've been talking to you, I've been trying, I want to work too. You shut down the factories, I can't get a job. It makes a big difference. And when you sit there and put people in that situation, these gangs and groups were not designed and put together to start a race war.
Right.
It was to help our own community. That's how the Bloods originated in Chicago. They was there. They designed themselves to help their own community because nobody else was policing and helping their community. It's when drugs and money slipped into the neighborhood is when it changed to violence and everything else. So they figured, we're going to get you one way or the other. We're going to put you in prison, mess you up. So while you're in prison, you locked down. So you have no voice. You can't do nothing. Now we got you off the street. As soon as you get out of prison, we got you again because now you got a felon record. Can't get a job. You're going to be stereotyped for that.
Right.
Oh, now we got you again on that because now you got a felon record. You can't vote. So we shut you up all the way around. And then you have no voice, period. The system was not designed for us. Like I said, the Constitution, Declaration of Independence was designed for them. In their mind, they wanted us to be slaves forever. And that's when the Civil War come about, was to stop that. You know what I'm saying? And then to make a long story short, in people's mind, when they talk about a civil war, you don't want a civil war today. Nobody does. Because like I said before, if you go and tell someone that you deliberately want to exterminate them because of the color of their skin, do you not think that we're not going to stand up for ourselves? Anybody. If we did that to you guys, not you in general, I'm having to speak this way because it's the only way. Sometimes you have to say stuff and step on people's toes. People are not going to like what they're hearing. But if you let an individual know, I'm here to exterminate you, you think I'm not going to rise up? So if you let people know I'm here to exterminate you, that people's going to rise against you. Now, you got other races that are not the same color as you. Once they hear that, they're going to be with you too because they realize, if you're going to exterminate them, you're going to try to exterminate me. So that means there's no limit to none of us. Your 60-something% is not really 60 because not everybody in that 60% is going to be with you on extermination. So some of that 60 finna jump over this way. Now that playing field finna get balanced out. It's going to be a whole new war.
Right.
And last but not least, by being a whole new war, which we don't want, that is what countries that hate us so bad love. They're sitting back right now watching this and enjoying it and hope that we destroy each other, have another civil war, do this, let war break out, be stupid, ignorant, and destroy each other, destroy ourselves, our business, our financial institutions, all that. Everything that makes America what it is, they want us to do this because they've seen us do it before. And then when we get down to our weakest point, what better way to come in and wipe us out? Then you want to stand together then because they'll love to see us do the work and be like, they're down now. Let's go get them. Yeah. We got to unite. instead of fighting against us, we have to unite. And we want to, but that 1% don't want us to, because if we unite, that leaves them without their agenda. There has to be confusion for certain people to hold jobs and positions. We need our officers. There would be chaos. There's something behind that. Defunding the police and get rid of them. They want to get rid of them for a reason. Because if all of them gone, who's going to stop who from doing what?
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't hate all officers. Like I said, I don't hate none of them. But nobody likes a crooked officer. And I don't like a racist officer, because you already know what you're in for.
Mm-hmm.
And it just comes down to it. You don't know we can comply and still get killed.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
I can sit here and do everything I'm told to do and end up dead later.
Yeah.
So that runs through your mind when you're complying that I might be killed in a few minutes.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it there and let this brother talk or whatever.
I want to speak on that just really quick. I hate to incriminate myself here, but I'm about to. Just to speak on like law enforcement and being on the other side of that. Now, I have been arrested before, so I know what that feels like. Now, in my situation, I always compare it to what if I was black? Because I got pulled over at 3 a.m. with a busted headlight. My license was suspended. I didn't know that at the time, so I had no idea I was going to jail, but I did. Now, I also had a bottle of pills in my car. Did not have my name on them. That's a controlled substance. That's a pretty big deal. And the cop waved it off. Like, he didn't even know me. Didn't even know me. Now, I went to jail, overnight, but I didn't get charged with anything other than just driving on a suspended license. Right, that's what I'm saying. There's a difference, and I know that. And like when I tell people that look at me like I'm insane sometimes, when I say there is a privilege to your color of your skin, I know that because I've experienced it on so many levels. Because I know, had I been someone else, there's no telling. Like, I was in jail for like 4 hours. You know what I mean? It was literally like nothing. I was back at work the next day, so like no big deal. But had I been black, I would have been in jail for a lot longer than that. I know that. I wouldn't have just wiped that off. I mean, it was a complete wipe off. Nothing. I didn't get any trouble whatsoever except for just that one little thing. So I think about those things. I think about, and I know there's agendas everywhere. There's agendas in all the places that we know they're there. That's why I think for us, we have to be united on this, on every level. Like Facebook doesn't help. Lord does not help at all. Like in any way. Like it's just ignorant capital of the world. Like it is just, a lot of it's just ignorance. I mean, it's just people that don't know any better. But the things that I've seen that have come out recently just by people, some of the really, really bad stuff, is stuff I've heard 1,000 times. And to be really transparent and really honest, the things I've heard in my life, just when they talk about Martin Luther King Day, if you're super racist, they call that James Earl Ray Day. Like that's what they call it. Like that's a real thing. Like that is not something that like I have to even like make up, because I've heard it. I've literally heard that thousands of times. It's just, if you want to hear the most racist comments in the world, you can go to any little town, to any little cafe, wherever they are. You can sit down 4 tables over and you'll hear whatever you want to hear. And I know that they're in all these little towns, and like I've seen it, and I've been privileged enough to be white, and nobody thinks about it when they're talking around me because they think I'm just like them. And then now that this has happened, now is when that gets called. Yes. Now it's like, no, that's not going to fly with me anymore. Like we can't be that way. And there's going to be a lot of hard conversations. And it's probably some friendships lost, just to be honest. But I think it's worth every bit of that. It's worth way more than that. I mean, to be honest, just it doesn't take a lot of courage to be me and to stand up against something like that. But I'll be honest, guys. Like I've just been heartbroken, like for this whole month. I can't imagine. Like I just can't. I can't fathom. I can't process all that. Like what it feels to to be a black person in America, especially where we live, where all these things that sit underneath the surface that we don't talk about, especially the white community, because they're all there. All those thoughts are there. You're gonna, like I said, you'll see those things come out more and more and more. But we've got to be a group of people that come together and pray together and seek God like we never have before together. Like, really, I mean, we can't just let this be a fad and let this thing just happen one time and it never happened again. The church is so important. Like, it is that thing, it's that glue, you know, that can really hold all this together, because God can do all that. God is for us. We just have to be for each other. I heard that today. Andy Stanley was talking about that. And he was also talking about the centurion who came to Jesus in the middle of a crowd. And he's the enemy. He's the guy that's oppressed everyone. Yep. And he's talking to Jesus. He's like, I need you to heal my servant. Yep. And he's like, you want me to come there and do that? And he's like, well, I don't deserve you to even be under my roof. And of course the crowd's like, you dang right, man. You suck. You know, like, you're a piece of crap. So like, Jesus had to risk losing the crowd to raise this person to life. And that's huge to me, man. Like, that's who we got to be all the time. And now more than ever. And I want this kind of conversation to continue in every town. However it has to happen. Every town has to have this conversation. And I'm tired of just being brokenhearted every week.
So yeah, with that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, Josh, having this environment, inviting people to church, it's an awesome start. It's a great start. And I believe that, you know, God is softening hearts right now. He's changing hearts. He's changing the way we think. You know, the Bible says, don't be conformed to the world, to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. In other words, in Jesus, he always called people to repent. And repent isn't simply doing a 180. That's just trying to change your behavior. That's behavior modification. And if you try to change your behavior, you're going to eventually go back to it. But, you know, if I could just talk like a preacher real quick, the word repentance is the Greek word metanoia. And metanoia literally means to change the way you think about a particular situation or a particular thing or a particular issue. Because if you can change the way you think about that particular issue, then it's going to change your behavior. And so from a spiritual standpoint, yes, let's open up God's word. Let's hear what God's word says about it so that it can change our hearts. Now, there are thousands of people that are outside the four walls of this church that haven't been exposed to the gospel or have let it wash off of them, and they have a certain way of belief, a certain racist way of belief. And there are laws right now in all 50 states that allow people to act on those racist beliefs. So what we can do practically, it is our civic responsibility to vote, is to advocate, you know, for common sense legislation that makes everybody equal. Because I can't change your heart if you're a racist, but I can change how you act upon your beliefs. And that is really powerful. You think about how you talked about the 13th Amendment. 13th Amendment, that was for the slaves. It was to abolish slavery. But there was a gaping loophole in that amendment. Right. I mean, and I'll quote it for you. You don't even have to pull it up on Google. The loophole is, slavery shall be abolished unless you're convicted of a crime. And in the South, there were crimes such as sassing a white person. I didn't physically hit you. I didn't harm you. I didn't take anything from you. I didn't violate you. I sassed you. I gave you a negative look. And that was grounds for me to be put in jail back then, and allowed me to be put back into that cycle of slavery. But you got to think about this. Let's fast forward today, because nobody's getting put in jail for sassing somebody. But let's talk about drug possession for a moment. 1 gram of crack cocaine gets the same amount of time as 100 grams of white powder cocaine. Now, talk to me. Who is the primary consumer of rock, crack, cocaine? We can say African Americans, Latinos. Who is the primary consumer of white powder cocaine, class and race? White, wealthy Caucasians. So should they get caught, you know, with a minimal amount of cocaine, they're probably not doing any time. They're going to get a slap on the wrist, you know, sort of like the benefit that you experienced, you know, we'll just, you know, for for a suspended license. And so those are things that we have to speak about. Those are things that we can go to our legislatures. We can open up the law book, it's public record, and we can look at laws, that misrepresent, or target a particular group of people. And so those are practical things that we can do if we just get involved with our state legislature. It's an election year, right? It's 2020, it's an election year. I saw a lot of state representatives out there. And so, and in Tennessee, it's a supermajority Republican House and Senate. So that means that there's a lot of people, who are looking to get reelected again. And you can have those conversations with them. Hey, what's your stance on this? What's your stance on, the militarization of the police? Do you think in our small town community, fully automatic weapons and SWAT gear, you think that's necessary for a busted taillight or a busted headlight or an expired license? Do you need all of that, all of those financial resources to get allocated to the police department, or should they go back into the community? You talked about baseball, being put back in action here today. Maybe we invest more in youth sports or other youth programs so that we can foster a stronger and healthier community, that can get maybe black children more involved in sports. Because traveling baseball leagues, guess what? They're very expensive. And guess who's not getting involved in that? Poor African-American kids, because they don't have the financial resources to, unless there's a benefactor, that's able to adopt them and help develop that talent within them. So those are things that we can kind of speak to practically. Let's press into God's presence like never before, because revival is hitting this earth. You think about it. We're in a worldwide pandemic. We have all this stuff going on. There's a shaking going on. Yes, we're on the verge of revival. But let's do something practically, because James says faith without works is dead. We can come in here and say we have all the faith in the world, and we can cry, between the camera and the altar. But if we don't actually, put our feet to the pavement and do something and say something, and vote your conscience. But don't vote blindly. Know who your legislators are. Know what policies they stand for. And if those are policies that align with your heart and align with what the gospel says, by all means, vote your conscience. But look at your guys' voting records. Then you'll see if there's a pattern that says that doesn't really line up with the gospel, or that disproportionately affects this group of people here and it empowers this group of people right here. So it's just something that we need to think about.
And I agree in the process of how you talk and what you went through with their process, because for me, it was actually a boom, boom moment. And what I call a boom, boom moment is when God says something right behind saying something. So when I picked up my microphone earlier and he started talking and I started talking, I was about to say, hey, we need to vote, people. Because in the process of how it goes, when you listen to how people talk, you hear certain catchphrases, right? Jazzy sounding word phrasings that catch on. And one of the things that catch on is criminal justice reform, right? Because when we talked about the different things, that all comes back to criminal justice reform. Well, it's very interesting that I sit beside you because I'm a young man that went to college on a baseball scholarship. That's how I got there, right? To play baseball. Now, travel ball was not as expensive then as it is now, and I was scholarship to be on the teams I was on because I could run just a little bit. But with that process, to understand how important it was, with one lesson that my father taught me, I always had to play on a team that was not in my neighborhood. I always had to play on a team that was across town. And I asked him one time, I said, Dad, why do I always have to play on a team with people that I don't know? He said, Nick, so you can meet people that you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to be around somebody to get different experiences so your life can change and you get more than you have right now. And when you talk about criminal justice reform does not happen if the same people stay in office. Because they have proven that they believe what they believe, they're gonna act the way they act, and if they stay there another 20 years, they're gonna keep doing the same thing. The only time they show up to listen is during election season, And they tell us just enough to get us to vote for them again, and then it goes right back to the same thing. And with criminal justice reform and another zingy term is militarization of the police department, I won't put my wife on the spot. She's in the room. But if you were to ask my mother, if she would rather me respond to a call for service in a tank or in a car, she's going to pick the tank every time.
That's your mama. That's right.
But we talked about changing our thought process, changing our perspective, because from her perspective, that's her baby. The tank will keep me safe. But do we think of that?
That's so good.
It's easy to look at it and say, well, they don't need that tank. And you know what? Most police departments don't need a tank. But do we think about how did that tank get there? It got there because a legislator allowed it to happen.
Right.
A person sitting in an office that got voted into office signed off on that. Every piece of equipment that you see, somebody signed off on that. So when we talk about criminal justice reform, look from the perspective of how do we change it? We change it by voting. What are we going to do about it? Because I've sat across the table, you all, from countless individuals that you go through, and we watch police shows on TV. You have the right to remain silent. And you say, it's the same. We say the same thing you see on TV pretty much. 9 times out of 10, you know what people do? Let me tell you what happened. He said, look, I just told you don't have to talk to me. I just told you to remain silent. I just told you that you will have an attorney that's not, free. You see, people think that the attorney is free that they get. You have to pay for that public defender. So now you have an individual paying for a public defender, and you're paying someone to represent you that may have a caseload of 50 other people that meet you the day you show up to court. And this person is supposed to sit there and represent you and keep you from going to jail for an extremely long period of time. They're going to encourage you to take the deal because you don't want to come back to court because you already missed 1 day of work. You don't want to miss another day of work because you're glad you got the job that you got. So now you take the deal, but you didn't read it as thoroughly as you should have read it. You just admitted to being a felon. Now you have some certain jobs that you can't get. So now the narrow road gets even more narrow. So when we talk about that, we can't just throw out criminal justice reform. We can't just throw out, let's not give police all this equipment. We have to say, how does it happen? What are we going to do about it? And every person in this room, even if by chance there is someone in this room that does not have the ability to no longer vote, they can still encourage somebody else to show up and vote. They can still give somebody a ride to go vote. Because we can pull up and look at how they vote, what they vote on, what they agree with. And we can email them, call them, ask the elected officials, why did you vote that way? Explain to me how you're my voice and you're representing me, but that is not what I believe in. But you want me to put you back in office? Raise your hand if you can go to work and do the opposite job that your boss told you to do. You see, I put my hand down real fast, didn't I? Right? But the elected officials work for us, but yet they do the opposite of what we ask them to do. How does that work? So it's on us to say, what are we going to do about it? We can affect change in that way. We can be a part of solving that issue because there's several different moving pieces to the problem. We can't just take our arrow and shoot it in their bullseye and say, we got it. We got to pull that arrow and shoot in that bullseye, but guess what? Tomorrow the target is going to move. Yeah. And, I didn't grow up hunting. I didn't hunt, right? But a good person, a good hunter will tell you that you can go out and shoot the target all day long. A skilled hunter can get their prey while the target is moving. You see, we forget civically that it's always a moving target. It doesn't stay in one spot. This week, we need to do better with racism. Next week could be a completely different issue. How can I prove it? Think about March 18th, when the state of Tennessee shut down. Many of us thought this, I did. I never thought that we would see anything like we saw when the governor said, stay home. And for most people, the thought process was, this is as bad as it's gonna get. And then a few weeks later, this is as bad as it's gonna get. A few weeks later, this is as bad as it's gonna get. And it kept changing and changing and changing. And then on top of that, civil unrest started taking place. And it all goes back to how we interact and how we vote. What do we expect? What do we ask? So those things, you all, for me, are near and dear to me and important to me and should be a part of the conversation. Yeah. Because we can't talk about racism without talking about elections. We can't talk about racism without talking about the criminal justice system. We can't talk about racism without talking about how we interact and talk at church. Moving parts, moving targets that we must adjust to.
No, I'll wait till you get finished, sir.
Are you sure? Did you want to piggyback? I don't want to stop the momentum right there. So you take off if you got something.
I'll just hit something very quickly. I'm a 17-year retired first sergeant from active duty military. They medically retired me. I'm an ex-drill sergeant in the whole 9 yards. I understand what it means to say I want to come home safe. 3 wars, 4 different countries. I get it. I promise I do. I understand that the police officer also wants to come home safe. I understand that we have guys in prison right now who've been in war but shot civilian because somebody in that house flicked a lighter. But you don't have time to wonder, is that a lighter? No. You're sent in to clear a building and to come home safe. I get that. I get that. But at the same time, there has to be some type of change on how we process, are we really in danger? The guy who just in Atlanta a couple of days ago, DUI, yes. Well, he should be arrested. I agree. Because if you let him drive, well, he wasn't driving. He was trying to run home. Well, what should we do? Go home and wait on him. He's drunk. But he's dead. Is he wrong? Yes. Nobody's questioning that. But did that penalty warrant death? There's the conversation there. I get it. And I'm now led to go into just a very brief story about my own kids.
Thank you.
My son.
I was gonna ask if you would just do that.
My son was in a neighboring town, 16, maybe 17-year-old. Him and his boys are riding around. He's 5 guys in a car, 4 black guys, and he's pretty good size, and 1 white guy. Well, they get reported for looking suspicious. I teach my kid to pull over and call daddy. You know, don't text and drive. You know, that stuff is, Oprah's talking bad about that. He happens to pull over at a bank. Daddy never said where to pull over at. So he pulls over at a bank. They reported suspicious car with black guys with guns. He pulls out his cell phone. Cop cars comes everywhere. Grab him, throw him on the ground, and have their weapon touching his forehead. He only was doing what daddy told him to do. And thankfully for the City of Maryland Police Department, he was the first one I called, I do believe, in that situation. Great help. But everybody don't have what we're blessed to have. I don't know how it is at McKenzie, but I can speak for Maryland, Tennessee. The chief is doing a wonderful job. My kids are so safe. They saw my daughter driving down the wrong side of the road because she didn't know how to drive, and they stopped and say, man, Pastor Bob's gonna kill you. You should be on this side of the road. So they're really good people. We appreciate that. But when you teach your children to obey, to do this, to do that, there's still a very strong chance that they're not coming home. My son goes to Memphis to play football. He says, Dad, I'm going down to Panama City on spring break. I go, oh boy. Okay, son. I said, listen, who's going with you? Well, me, and he mentioned a couple other guys' names. I said, son, you're 6'2", 235. You're a linebacker, so are your people riding with you. Gas up before you get to Mississippi. Get all your snacks before you get in Mississippi. Drive with both hands at a 10 and a 2 while you're traveling through Mississippi. But that's not a conversation that everybody has to have with their young sons. So there is a white privilege there. You know, I mean, it exists. And when you're trying to teach, hey, boy, make straight A's. Daddy did that. I mean, this dude is getting, you know, not to puff him up, but we talking about Ivy School leagues that are giving him full rides because of academics as well as football. Vanderbilt. And my other son is following along the same way. But at the same time, they're following the rules, man. They get it. They get it. But there's still a chance that their life can be taken more rapidly than their counterparts. And it's not because we teach to hate cops. But when I have to have a conversation about survival, and next time don't call me from the bank, there's a problem, America.
Right.
There's a problem.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, stories like this, and I don't know where you're wanting to take this, Josh, but stories like this this is what I was most excited about. Not to hear tragic stories about your children or you, but because as white people, we don't go through that. It's just not a part of our upbringing. I was literally not one time ever instructed as to how to approach a police officer when he's walking up to my window. I can remember times where a police officer's walking up to my window and I'm going through my backpack getting my wallet. Right. I'm going through my backpack getting my wallet. I'm not thinking anything about that. I'm not thinking, to somebody else, to one of my buddies, to my girlfriend, that could be something that is potentially life-threatening. We were talking to a guy the other day. Shout out to our podcast. It'll come out this Friday, but he travels with Christian rappers, all right? And they're hitting these huge shows, the same ones that all of us go to, Winter Jam, Forward Conference, Passion, all this different stuff, the same guys that are there. He's traveling with them. He's the only white guy in a car, 4 black guys. They're rolling right through Mississippi, the Mississippi-Alabama border. They get pulled over. The cop comes to the window. All these guys, all right? He asked every black male to get out of the car, and he asked the white guy, "Are you okay?"
Wow.
They all had to get up along the side of the car, but he asked the white guy to stand there and then came to him separately and said, "Are you okay? Did they kidnap you?" Assuming. That is what we're talking about, man, when we say this kind of stuff. And I haven't said a lot tonight, and I'm not going to say a lot tonight because everyone right here, and this is not to make fun of their age as much, and Pastor Ballard will appreciate that because last time we were around, I poked fun of him a little bit. But this is not to make fun of anyone's age. It's to almost make a little bit light of mine. The Pastor Josh Forbes, you're 36, is that what you said? So he is 10 years older than me. And then we continue moving on, and the age gap gets further and further and further.
You don't have to look at me when you say
Yeah. I wasn't.
We said truth. We have to be truth tonight.
Yes, sir.
It is what it is. But I like this because this gives us an opportunity to do this thing called learning. For most of us, we've never had conversations like this. And I tell people all the time that most pastors, and the Bible's really clear, as a pastor, you should be able to hold your own in theological discussions. You should be able to talk about this stuff. I tell people all the time, if I get to 47, I'm 27 now. If I get to 47 and I don't look back and think, man, I was an idiot, I didn't know anything, then I feel like I haven't done my job. Surely as a 27-year-old preacher, I don't already know everything perfectly. Surely I don't. If I can't get to 47 and say, you know what, that sermon, we're going to take it offline because I don't even believe in what I said anymore. And I encourage our church even, like, we should continually be growing. We should continually be learning. Well, this is one of the same categories, man. If you feel like you haven't progressed in what you believe and stories that you've heard in the last 10 years, like, this is our opportunity to do that, to grow as people. Like, I hope that by the time I'm their age, everyone sitting in this room understands, like, people have heard stories like this, that they haven't. Maybe for some of you, you're in your 40s and you've never heard a story of someone of an opposite color, of like the struggles that they're put through. Well, I hope that as we just age and grow, that we can just continue doing that we can learn. This is all this is. I love that there were so many different perspectives tonight. I love the officer, pastor, coach, my dad's best friend, Nick Glenn, right here, got up here, and every time he brought a little bit of a different perspective, because that is the whole goal. The goal was not for every single person in this chair to think the same way and to see it all from the same perspective. The goal is to be able to hear someone's perspective without getting so stinking defensive, to feel like they're, I don't know. I don't subscribe to white guilt. No one's asking you to subscribe to white guilt. You're not supposed to say, I'm sorry for being white. That's not it at all. We can learn how to be better, though. We can learn how to do better, though. And this is how this happens, man. This is how we grow as people, as a society, is being able to hear other perspectives without getting defensive and feeling like people are attacking you for whatever. So I hope that this has been valuable tonight. I hope that you can walk away from this hearing, different perspectives from people of color. Like, that's my favorite thing, that you guys got up here and it's like you didn't even agree on every single point. I love that. I love that happened, because it shows that, and this is kind of what we even, kind of what we preach within our leadership team here, is that disagreement doesn't mean disunity. You can still be unified and disagree with things. You can walk out of here and say, you eat the meat and you spit out the bones, but it's like, at the end of the day, yeah, we need reformation. Yes, there's a problem. Yes, for the white people in the room, there's probably areas of racism that we have never addressed, that we've never talked about, we didn't even know we had. And this is an opportunity for us to just grow. You don't have to go home and punch yourself in the face for being white. No, that's not the goal here, The goal is to hear perspective, to learn, to grow, and just to challenge the truth that you thought was truth that might not actually be truth after all. So, Josh, I'm gonna let you take it from here. That's all I'm saying tonight.
It doesn't matter. I want to just hit off that just really quick. It's okay that we don't know at times too. I know a lot of, I see a lot of posts like, I see things, not even just posts, I hear people talk and they're like, well, just don't commit a crime, nothing to worry about. I think we clearly have seen that's not always the case. And I think it's also really clear that we don't know what it's like to be black, and that's okay too. Like, we don't have to, but we don't have to like argue about it either, like we do. Like we already know, we don't know, and that's fine. Like, it's okay not to know that. But Nick asked me to read his poem. I don't know if any of you saw it. It made the news. Yes, pretty famous. It did, made the news. It made my Facebook. And I'm going to read this for you really quick. The dichotomy of black and blue. There's a particular dichotomy that accompanies being black while blue. If you say my blue life matters, then my black life should too. My blue life is a calling, but in the end, just a vocation, while my black life travels with me to every location. This badge has been tarnished through no fault of my own, to the point where I'm terrified at the thought of my sons being on a traffic stop alone. People say they don't see color, but they clearly see blue. You would be yelling too if this continued to happen to you. After rivers of flowing tears and hundreds of years of oppression, We are remedial and have not learned, but keep repeating the same classroom lesson. There's a particular dichotomy that accompanies being black while blue, because when you are off duty, you know that they may just shoot you. My blue life gets celebrated, but I'm tired of the indistinct chatter. What I need is for all to acknowledge that my black life matters. That's good, Nick. Thank you. And I think the whole movement that you see online, that you see on TV, black lives do matter. And I'm going to fight for that until the bitter end, because it's true. There's no reason to discount that by saying something else. There doesn't have to be a response other than I'm with you. There doesn't need to be any other response. I know there are other responses that we throw out there to negate those things and negate those movements, because maybe we don't agree with everything about it. But that's okay too. But they matter. You guys matter. You guys matter to us. And there are so many things I've learned. I've always been very anti-political through my young adult stage. I've always raged against the machine. I've always been very rebellious in that category. I never trusted the government. I don't trust a bunch of old white men anyway. But I'm learning, though, as I get older, that is an important part of my duty as a citizen. So I'm learning not to ignore that. I'm learning to learn more about that. So that's very important. And even the things you guys brought up, the reforms that we need, the people that we need to either get out of office or get into office are important. And the church should recognize that too. Not get involved, politics is an idol for the church. I will say that. It is an idol. It's truly an idol. We jump to that really, really fast in every conversation. But it's something we should be involved in as people, as citizens. I think that's important, as Christians, to be involved. Not to make people believe what we believe, because I don't think that's fair either. I don't think somebody that doesn't want to be a Christian should have to be one, because I said you do. I don't think we need to write laws to make you be a Christian, but I think we should vote our heart there, and vote for what's best for us as people. So that's important. So thank you guys for that tonight. It helped me even understand that even more and how imperative that is. Anybody else got anything? Go for it.
I just want to piggyback on something you just said that it won't take long. When you said the Black Lives Matter, that has been taken to a whole nother level too. I mean, look at it three ways like it has been looked at. You say Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, and we'll say, four ways, and then you say all lives matter. Okay, well, we as black people, we understand all lives matter. That's not, nothing new for us. We understand it. That's not our point. But if people look at all four of those phrases, lives matter, lives matter, lives matter, lives matter. All four times, that's the same phrase. Black, white, blue, all. That's four more different phrases. That's four more different words. Now, when you say white lives matter, people don't have a problem with it. We don't have a problem with it. When you say all lives matter, people don't have a problem with that. We don't have a problem with it. When you say blue lives matter, we don't have a problem with that either. People don't have a problem with that either. The problem that they have is black.
Yeah, that's true.
Every one of them words are all the same. The only thing different, lives matter, lives, all that was the same. But black was the only word that they had the problem with. It's not lives matter, everybody's life matter, but it's black. Right. Until you get past that part and quit looking at us as if we're less than you. Because I don't see you less than me. I don't see you above me, and I don't see me above you. God created us equal. If every one of us was bleeding up here right now, all our blood would be the same. This may sound gross to say, if we were skinned inside out, we would look the same. And if someone said, pick, like you do a deer, which one's the black man, which one's the white man? But everybody's seen Predator. You seen how that looked. You wouldn't have known if that was a black man or a white man up there. Right? I'm just being honest. You'd have never known the difference. We all bleed the same. But the reason why there is a difference is because we're taught that way. We were taught And until it changes at home, it's not going to change nowhere. This conversation we're having today is not going to change racism in America. There are going to be people that are going to be racist no matter what you say. You can't tell them nothing. They're going to be that way all day, every day, whether they're black, white, whatever color. And that's not going to change. But it starts at home. And, you know, I was going to say something earlier, and I forgot to say it because I got sidetracked. But I used to ask my mama this all the time when I was young. Like I said, we would do Fourth Sunday Fellowship. And we would go Fourth Sunday Fellowship when all the churches get together. And we would eat, sing, praise, and worship. So at that time, sometimes we'll go to the all-white church, because it was, and it would be Church of Christ too. And then we would be at our church, and it's Church of Christ too. So as a black kid, you're growing up like, okay, they Church of Christ, we're Church of Christ. How come we can't be together, Mom? Well, she got to explain that to us. We have to be explaining why. They don't want you in there. That's why you got this is the black church, is white. They don't want you in it. I'm like, but we're supposed to all, God says, love your neighbors and love yourself. Everybody's supposed to get along. We're supposed to work together and be one, but we're not one, not even in the church. So you see that growing up. And then as a black kid, when your history is pushed to the side, you're looking at things from a different perspective. I don't think a lot of people look at it. Because until you understand what a black person is going through, you have to get out of your box and look into his shoes. Get in his shoes. The same way, it's like, how can I say that I know what a woman goes through with birth when I can't give birth? But I'm out like, I know exactly what that's like. No, you don't. I'm pretty sure somebody's working on trying to make that possible. I mean, scientists always is up to something. But the truth of the matter is that we do that to each other, and you'll never know where they're coming from until you actually get in that person's shoes and try to see how they look at it. And you take a black kid growing up in America the way we did. I'm a 70s era child. Like I said, I'm 45. So you're growing and you're trying to see things and see if you find your place in this world. And you're looking at it like, okay, I've been here, and you got a picture of Jesus, which they got that wrong because Jesus' skin was bronze and his hair was like wool. Mm-hmm. Okay, so why am I looking at a picture of blonde hair, blue eyes? That ain't right. So, but if it's your black kid, you're like, okay, Jesus is white, Santa Claus is white.
Come on now. Come on now, Easter Bunny.
You know what I'm saying?
You've been watching Fox News.
The majority of the police is white, you know, at the time you're growing up and you're seeing that. You look, your president was white because we didn't ever have an African-American president at the time. So you look at the school system, everything, and then your history is not taught in our school about what we did and what it's pushed to the side. So we learn more about what you did than we did ourselves. So then when you actually think that we're uneducated, actually we know more. Not to say that we're more of a dominant. I understand your history, and then we're learning ours at the same time. But they don't want us to know ours. And if you want to change the school system, the way people think, some of that history needs to be put into these school systems. That's the only way that anybody that is racist or you don't want your kid to be racist is going to learn anything, is that it has to be in the school system for them to be able to see so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. This is why we fought this battle. This is why we went down this road. It has to be shown. And until we do that, it's never going to change. It's never going to get any better. We can argue and disagree. Right now, there are people looking at us, hating every bit of this. They would love for us to start throwing chairs and drums over there, everything that we can do to disrupt, you know, a peaceful agreement and disagree. All four of us brothers are black, and we sat here and agreed and disagreed, and now one of us had a fight about it.
So it's not black on black crime.
There's no point in it. You can agree to disagree. And every one of us could sit here and talk all night, but we're not going to, because I mean, we can always tell you some kind of encounter we've came in with. But mainly, if we want to change something, start it at the house first. And from there, it'll make its way throughout the rest of the world. And quit pushing people's history, sweeping it under the rug. That's the only way things are going to change. Starts with home.
That's good, Keith. Let's thank these guys tonight. A round of applause. Everybody stand up, give a round of applause. I'm gonna pray really quick, and we're gonna get out of here. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for joining us online tonight. We'll have this thing out tomorrow. You can share it, let everybody see it. thank you guys so much for coming, for taking part of your day and being with us, for traveling here, for coming and sharing your stories and your perspective. Dear God, tonight we come to you asking you to heal our land, to heal us, to heal our hearts. Thank you, God, for allowing us to learn tonight, to learn about each other. We love you so much and who you are. You're that light in the darkness, and thank you for just shining through us tonight, letting us speak truth to not just this room, but our community and our nation. And God, we hope this message travels far and wide, and thank you for giving us the technology to even do that. So God, we love you. I'm thankful for these men that I stand beside tonight and all they represent, all their stories, everything they've been through. Thank you, God, for allowing them to share that tonight, for giving them the strength and the courage to stand here and to share what they've done and what they've seen so we could learn more about how to love our neighbor and how to love our friends. God, we love you again, and we thank you in your name. Amen.